Hi, hello, welcome back to the channel. Today, I told you earlier this week was going to be the weekly update, but I now realise that it is the last Friday of October, so you're going to get my monthly update instead, monthly wrap up. So this month I have read, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books, because I finished Holly by Stephen King earlier today. So, I read all 6 books on my TBR, and I have managed to pick up the first 3 books out of, 3 and a bit that I have, the 4 and a bit I have planned to read next month. I've given myself some wiggle room because I really do want to get back to the Hybrid Helix books by JCM Byrne, and I would like to get some more time in with the audiobook for Zach Argyle's Voice of War, and I also have a billion. I say a billion. I have the 3 Sanderson secret projects that I am interested in reading, which is the 3 Cosmere ones, and I would like to at least get one of those under my belt before the end of the year. So, we'll talk about what I'm going to read next month. Well, really, if I talk about it in this video, then I'm kind of spoiling the TBR video. So ignore everything that you've just heard, and please come back to the channel and watch the TBR video when it posts. I think I will probably post it on Tuesday, which is like my book tag / non-current reading day. It's like Tag Tuesday, but I only do a tag if I think I've got something fun to say to the questions. Or if somebody that I know is like somebody that I know on booktube through chatting in comments and stuff has tagged me. So there you go. So what books did I read this month? Well, I started off with Mr. Mercedes by Stephen King. Mr. Mercedes, I rated this one a 5-star. Mr. Mercedes is the first Bill Hodges book and is the introduction of the character of Holly Gibney. So Holly, my mission for the month was to get to Holly. I'm covering the title. Was to get to Holly. Now, I did do that. I did get to Holly, and I finished Holly. I finished Holly in like a day or 2, maybe 3 evenings of reading. In fact, I think that I finished the short story for If It Bleeds on Wednesday evening, started Holly, and finished Holly this evening. Much earlier this evening. So I'm recording this at almost 10 o'clock. And I'll tell you why I'm recording this so late fairly shortly. So yeah, my mission for the month was to get through the Bill Hodges and Holly Gibney books. There's 5 full books, and there's also one, what Stephen King calls a long story, which is the title story for If It Bleeds, which is kind of like a collection, which has a few short stories in this one long story. It's about a third of the size of the average Bill Hodges Holly Gibney novel. It's about 160 pages. It's very good as well. So what else did I read? Yeah, so I read all of the Bill Hodges trilogy. So after Mr. Mercedes, I started Finders Keepers, and then I went into End of Watch, and then I moved straight on to The Outsider, which is the first Holly Gibney book that's not got Bill Hodges in it. Then If It Bleeds, and then finally Holly. if you asked me my favourites that I've read, so I know we often do like a book of the month. Other booktubers will often do like best book of the month and like most disappointing book of the month. Um, Personally, I don't feel like it's particularly useful for me to talk about disappointing books, because even the worst book that I read this month, which I think was probably Finders Keepers, the second Bill Hodges book, even though, like I said, that was probably the worst book I read this month, um, I still think it's like a low 4 stars. Um, and I'm the kind of person who will just drop a book if I'm not absolutely loving it, because I think this is something that I've realised as I've gotten a bit older, and I know that some of the people that I follow on BookTube actually are. I say actually, some of the people I follow on BookTube are older than me. Some of the people are younger, but I have to say that my philosophy when it comes to reading is, I say reading, basically any activity, is there is absolutely no point in spending the very little time that I have as a parent, the very little time that I have on something that I'm not enjoying. Or there's often times where I think, oh right, I'm reading this book and it's good, but I know I'll have a better time if I read this other thing. And when I start thinking like that, that is pretty much an instant clue for me to go, right, let's pack this book in and read something else. And weirdly, the only time, whilst I say that I'm the kind of person who absolutely will do that, the only time that I've actually wanted to stop reading a book midway through and switch over to something else, there's really only been 2 times since I've gotten back into reading at the tail end of 2021. And one of those was Mad Ship, the second Live Ship Traders book, and that was purely because I had read at that point 4 like 800-page Robin Hobb books in a row, and I was just, I don't know, I just needed a break. I don't think that Robin Hobb is, I mean, for example, I read 6. Is it 6? Yeah, I read 6 Stephen King books this month. Admittedly, one of them was a long story, so not a long book, and none of them were as long as the longer books in the Realm of the Elderlings. But I feel like with something like Stephen King, you can really binge those books. And I just haven't found that with Robin Hobb. I really enjoyed the Farseer trilogy, and I did pretty much, I think I read all 3 back to back, so I did kind of binge those. But I went straight into Live Ship Traders, and I feel like I probably should have done Live Ship like maybe 1 month or so. And I don't know if I'm going to need to restart Mad Ship. I'll probably, I don't know. We'll see. I'll start reading it and we'll see how I feel. If I watch like a recap for the first book. I can't remember the name now. I've moved. It's moved in from my to TBR pile to my have read pile. So I can't actually see it in the corner of my eye. Anyway, that's a long way of talking about how I read books that I love. So, yeah, so I read Finders Keepers, which I said I think is pretty much the worst book of the month. I think all of these books absolutely are recommended. Honestly, I do like them all. And even Finders Keepers, I think another person with even similar reading taste to me might say this is their favourite. So Finders Keepers is really, really good, but I feel like I wanted to see more of the characters from Mr. Mercedes, and that doesn't really happen for the first like third of the book, and that kind of brought basically my expectations, brought my opinion of the book down. Next, I read End of Watch, which I think, again, if you asked me on any day, I couldn't tell you whether Finders Keepers or not Finders Keepers, sorry, End of Watch or Mr. Mercedes were the best Bill Hodges book, but I really enjoyed End of Watch, and I think that it has a great kind of circling back to some of the story stuff from the first book. It's got some really good story development for Bill and Holly, and the supernatural aspects that come to the fore in that book are very good. And it leads really well. It leads Holly very well into The Outsider. So, The Outsider is the next book that I read as well. The Outsider I really, really loved, and I really like the character of Ralph, who is kind of the protagonist. You do get some small sections from Holly's point of view, and she is in the book quite a lot. But she's not in the book for a while, similar to Finders Keepers, actually, in that the main characters don't turn up for a while. Not main characters, the characters you love don't turn up for a while. The Outsider is really, really good. The premise is fantastic, and the execution is great from King. And I think that there are some things that I feel he kind of trips up on in some of the books, and he just doesn't at all in The Outsider. It feels like there's way less stuff that I feel like maybe could have been edited out, if that makes sense. I mean, like, he's Stephen King, so I can't imagine there's a lot of red pen being taken to his manuscripts. And definitely reading some of them, it feels like there's very little being taken to it. However, The Outsider feels like a proper all-timer. The Outsider is one that I would genuinely be like, people should read this. It's a really good book, and I'd recommend it to people even who hadn't read the previous books in the series. The one caveat I would say is that if you think you might be interested in the Bill Hodges trilogy, don't read all of these books in order the same way that I did, because every book spoils all of the previous ones. There's no book where they don't go like, this character dies, this happens. Like, they always talk about this. King always refers back to the events. So you can't, for example, pick up Holly and then pick up Mr. Mercedes and expect to not be told the full plot of that book. So after The Outsider, I read the long story, If It Bleeds, in the anthology book of the same title. It's funny because I think of fantasy novels as often having like side novellas that are like in between the books, but I've not really seen that from other genres really, and it's fun to see that from Stephen King, who's like, these books in particular are like crime / thriller / horror towards the end of the series. And so it's fun to get like a shorter story in that world. And I think that the interesting thing there is that you get so much of, because it's the first book entirely from Holly's point of view, you get so much more of Holly's relationships and like her backstory and how she feels about certain characters. I think I said before that you can really tell throughout the books, every time Holly pops up, how much Stephen King like really loves her. And I love her as well. I think she's fantastic. If It Bleeds feels like Stephen King really like relishing writing it and like slipping into her shoes. Speaking of which, Holly is again like, I really struggle to say that Holly is the best book of this set. I think it's the one that I enjoyed the most. I think it's the one with the most glaring flaw. I'll talk more about this in the review. Holly often has like, Stephen King has in Holly, he has kind of turns of phrases and he gives detail on things that I don't think enhances the story in the way that a lot of his books give you a lot of background and a lot of character building. But in some cases, he does things in Holly that I feel like you didn't really need to come up, if that makes sense. He also does a few things over and over, which I thought were weird. Um, so this is a weird one. He talks about Holly's iPad constantly. He will be like, oh, she sat down in a cafe and pulled out her iPad to do some research, and it's like, I feel like most people nowadays would be doing that on their phones. And also, does he? I feel like I don't know why, but this stuck out to me so much. And we'll talk about this in the review. But it's just constantly mentioning her iPad, which I thought was kind of weird. Like maybe if you told me Stephen King got sponsored by Apple for this book, I would not be surprised. But also, if you told me that Stephen King got a brand new iPad and was really, really in love with it, I absolutely would be surprised either. Like, as a guy who loves like tech and gadgets and stuff, um, I absolutely, when I get a new gadget, I constantly play with it and use it all the time. So I know exactly how Stephen King feels if that's the case. And if that is the case, Stephen, absolutely you do you. Go for it. Um, so in my TBR, I did talk about how I had quite a few options for if I finished all my books early. And I have actually finished the. This is the most ambitious TBR I've ever had, and I've only had like one before, and like, but well, you know what I mean. So I've not had many TBRs, and this one was an extremely ambitious one because it was a lot of books. And also I knew that I would be spending multiple days playing the new Spider-Man game, which I did do, which is why I didn't have a video really ready for Monday and had to make one off the cuff. And we'll talk about that later as well. But so I finished that quite ambitious TBR, and next month's TBR is actually, I would say, less ambitious. So we've got 4 novels, 1 short story collection, and 1 novella. Actually, I think it might be a collection of novellas, not a collection of short stories. But we'll talk about this again in the TBR. But I'll give you a little bit of a preview that I have already started the first book from next month. So I decided not to go for my in reserve of my TBR, mostly because I let my Kindle Unlimited lapse, and that was where I was going to be reading the Hybrid Helix books, or I was considering picking up a physical, but I probably wouldn't have had time to read the physical because it would have taken a few days to arrive. So I had the idea and was like, right, I will just start next month's book early. And I thought to myself, so when I finished Holly, I was like, oh, I can't record the video yet because my son's still awake and he can be a bit noisy. So I was like, I know, I'll just read a few pages of Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. So I decided to read the Skyward books next month. And like I said, I'll talk about this in full in the TBR video, which will be out on Tuesday. I decided to read the Skyward books because the final book in the series is coming out, and I really enjoy reading books with a community. So I thought to myself, I know, I like reading Brandon Sanderson books. These books are apparently extremely readable and are kind of pitched at a more YA audience, which I often see as being a little bit more bingeable, a little bit quicker to read. So I thought, I know, I'll try and read all of them, and then I'll read the brand new one the day it comes out. I'm not going to try and do what I did with the Ice, where I read the whole thing in a day, but I will try and read it quickly and then put the video up quickly. But Skyward, I sat down to read a couple of pages to get a flavour of it to talk about it in this video, because I thought, well, I'm going to film this later, I might as well talk about it. And I absolutely love it, and I've already finished the first part of the book. I'm over 50 pages in. So genuinely really excited to read more of this, and I kind of wish I did not have 2 more videos to film so that I could read, which is a real booktuber problem, and I'm kind of excited to have it. So, best book of the month. So this is a fun one because, like I said, Holly has probably the most glaring flaws of any of the books, and Holly, the Outsider is probably the Outsider and Mr. Mercedes, I would say, are probably the most like objectively. I think people will love these books, but I think I'm going to say, even though also I gave Mr. Mercedes 5 stars, and I think I probably should have given the Outsider 5 stars, not 4, but and I gave Holly 4 stars. I think Holly's my favourite, because I love Holly Gibney so much, and it's her book, and the villains in Holly are excellent. They're absolutely on the same tier as Brady Hartsfield, but I think that they're a little bit more interesting because they're not just kind of that stereotype that you might see in other books, other crime books. So, yeah, I think Holly's my favourite book of the month. As I said before, my least favourite is Finders Keepers, but it's a great book, so I really have nothing to complain about. I've got the old iPad here, which is I've been running through my Goodreads, which is how I knew what I'd rated everything. But what I also wanted to talk about is how the channel's done this month. I've seen other booktubers do this, and I think, I don't know, I always have fun watching it, so I'm going to talk about it. I don't know whether I talked about it last month, but I'll try and actually pull together a template for these videos going forward. But for now, I think I'm probably just going to do what I read, favourite book of the month, what I'm currently reading, if I'm reading something for the next month, and then like a little bit of a chat about how the channel's done. So this month we hit 100 subscribers, which is really cool. We are currently at 113, so it's been, I don't know, it's been a week or so, and I've got 13 more subscribers, which is great. If I look at the analytics, it says that I got 31 subscribers in October, which is 55% more than I got in September, so that's genuinely really exciting. Growth on the channel is great. I'm seeing more people commenting, not just the same people over and over, which I do appreciate. Everyone who comments, I massively appreciate. One of the biggest things that I wanted out of this channel was to A, diverse recommendations from people, and B, to chat about the books I read, and to have that kind of outlet to be able to do that. And that's something that I'm massively getting from having more and more people subscribe and more people watch the videos and comment. So if you've been watching my videos but have never left a comment, leave a comment on this one, let me know what kind of books you read, and we'll have a chat. My best video for the month, best performing video, is the video that I made on a complete whim on Monday, which is my Kindle Oasis long-term review. So I was about 2/3 of the way through The Outsider but hadn't finished it, and I had no off the book video to make, and I was like, I'm going to make my Kindle review, then I'll finish The Outsider and I'll review it the next day, which I think I did. And yeah, that Kindle review, as I say, we got 314 views on that one, which is amazing. I think that's the most viewed video on my channel since I started doing books. I do have one video that I made a couple of years ago, which I just made it because as like a little tutorial video. It's like 90 seconds long, and it's my most watched video by a country mile. It has 5,000 views, and it is usually the most watched video every single week. Weirdly, this week the Kindle Oasis the review is the biggest video, but I'm sure it will go back to being how to sell your Steam cards. And the worst performing video of the month, I'm sure you all want to know. Let's look through. I think it's going to be the End of Watch review, which only has 10 views. Yeah, so we're looking, the End of Watch review only has 10 views. So that one is the worst performing. It also has no comments, and I think almost all of my other videos have 1 or 2 comments. Or in fact, my video reacting to the r/Fantasy's top 25 books and series has no comments, and I really am surprised about that. I kind of thought people would be in the comments saying, "Oh, you should prioritize this book. Oh, you should prioritize that book." So, c'est la vie. Didn't kind of expected that one to prompt more discussion and to help me plan those future TBRs. But there you go. So, I think that's probably everything that we need to talk about this month. I think October has been a genuinely fantastic reading month. I've loved every book that I've read, and like I said, even though Finders Keepers was my least favourite, I still would say that it is a great book. And while I think pretty much all the books were like high 4 stars, I would say Mr. Mercedes was like a low 5. And The Outsider was very close to 5. Holly was very close to 5. So genuinely fantastic books. I hope you guys liked the thumbnail for The Outsider, which I thought was genuinely good. I tried to copy the book cover. So let me know if you thought that was fun. I enjoyed making it. So yeah, that's everything. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Please, if you liked the video, give it a like. If you didn't like the video, drop a comment below and tell me how I can improve. And if there's anything you think I should add to these monthly wrap-ups. And as always, if you've got a friend who you've been trying to convince to read these Bill Hodges, Holly Gibney books, then you feel free to share this video. I think that next week I will put out a dedicated video discussing all of the Holly Gibney books and kind of saying, was it worth it to read through them all to get to Holly? So again, if you'd be interested in that, drop a comment below and let me know, and I will make it a priority. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you guys again on Monday for the Holly review, which I'm going to film right now. And I hope you had a good weekend. Bye.